friends, I'm Katana with Gemini Smile. I'm a tooth gem technician and a gold charm manufacturer. I get asked probably the most commonly how to bend gold charms. So in this video, I'll show you a few different methods on how to bend gold charms before putting them on your client's smile. In this video, I'm going to be walking you through 4 different ways of bending gold, going in order from which tools I think you're most likely to have laying around your studio, and moving on to tools that you might have to purchase in order to do this. The first method will be using either a pointed tip applicator or a micro brush. The second method will be using 2 pairs of hemostats. The third method will be using round nose pliers. And the fourth method will be using ring or metal forming pliers. For each of these demonstrations, I'll be using our 18 karat yellow gold heart, but you can use these methods for any gold pieces that you need to bend. There are a couple of important things I want to go over before I start showing you how to do this. The first thing is that as a tooth gem technician, it's your job to make sure you're helping your client find a design that's going to fit their smile the best. And I always encourage my clients to put gold pieces on teeth that have enough room and a flat enough surface to allow it. If my client was biting down, I would make sure the gold piece is small enough if they want it on the bottom row to fit on this space. If they want it on their top teeth and they have an overbite, I'll make sure that we're putting it on the least curved tooth possible. 99% of the time, I'm helping my client choose a spot on their mouth that does not require the gold piece to be bent any more than it already is. Therefore, you really should not have to be doing this too often. The second thing I wanted to note is that your gold pieces should be coming with a slight bend already in them. On this piece, you can see when I flip it that it already has a slight bend moving from the left side over to the right side. And this bend should follow the curve of your client's tooth. If you're ordering from a high quality tooth gem manufacturer, all of their gold charms should come with a slight bend already in them. This is why you likely will not need to bend your gold pieces for your client's smile. If your gold pieces are not already coming with a slight curve to them, then I would recommend finding a manufacturer that does offer that, because that means they're designing their gold pieces with teeth in mind specifically. The third thing before we get into bending this piece is to simply be cautious when you're bending gold tooth charms. They are thin, they're meant to fit flush to a tooth, and you can bend them too far. So simply be careful and bend them at a slow pace, a little bit at a time until it fits your client's smile. Once you and your client have decided what tooth you want the gold piece to be on, you know for sure that you will end up needing to bend it in order for it to fit the curve of the tooth. You'll check how far you need to bend it, and you'll come back periodically after bending it a little bit at a time to make sure that the fit is good. Once it's good, you can go ahead and apply it how you normally would. With each of these methods, I will show you how to bend the gold just a little bit at a time, and then in between is when you would check with your client. The last note I want to make before we move on to bending gold is that you always want to bend your gold in the direction that it is already curved. Like I said, they should already have a natural curve to them, so you want to continue bending them in that direction. If you were to bend this heart going top to bottom, you would have bends going in 2 directions, and you'd essentially create a bubble in the middle that's going to hold on to composite and not sit on the client's tooth properly. So make sure you're always following the natural bend. It's very easy to tell in pieces like this, the bend is going to be going left to right and fit the curve of the tooth. As you can see, it's going like this. On other pieces like a 4-leaf clover, or let's say you just had a circle, you're just going to have to hold it both directions and see which way the bend is going before you start bending it yourself. Starting with the pointed tip applicator and the micro brush, you will likely have these tools laying around so you can use them to bend gold. There's 3 reasons that I don't love this method. The first is because it simply doesn't feel very professional when you're working with a client to be bending your gold pieces on sticks. The second is that there's a little bit more room for error with this method. And the third is that it's harder to get the gold back to its original shape if you bend it too far. But I will go ahead and show you how to use this if this is all you have. What you're going to do is place the gold piece on top of your pointed tip applicator or micro brush. And I'm going to do my best to do this while holding on to the piece so you can see it. But while you're personally doing it, you can obviously hold the entire piece down with your finger. You don't need to keep part of it exposed. But what you'll do is hold on to it and then use your finger or your nail to push. If you can see this, I'm trying to push these edges that are sticking over the pointed tip applicator onto the pointed tip applicator so that it can curve more to the shape of this applicator. The easiest way to do it is just to hold it down, pinch it around the edges. If it's easier for you, you can also try to hold it from the bottom and then grab the part that's exposed and pull that up towards the applicator. And you'll want to just repeat on each side. This is why I say there's more room for error, because you're trying to get a uniform curve on each side of your gold piece, and you just have to be really patient with it. In addition to that, if you have a piece like a daisy that has all these little petals and you have to bend every petal to be uniform, there's just a lot more room for error. So it's just something to consider when you're trying this method. I am just continually pulling the edges of the heart in and then trying to go on the other side and pushing them down. Hopefully you can see. It's a little bit hard to see because they're so thin, but you can see on the left is an original yellow gold heart that has not been bent. And on the right is one that I formed a little bit around the pointed tip applicator. This was after a couple of minutes of trying to form it around the applicator, and it only bent maybe a percentage, 1 or 2%, a little bit. You can see there is slightly more bend, but this is why it's not my favorite method. It's very difficult to do. It feels kind of unprofessional, and you get a tiny bend at a time, especially if you're working with a thicker piece that has depth to it, like a dice that has the dice holes in it. That's going to be a little bit thicker. That will be extremely hard for you to form using one of those. But that is the method of using the pointed tip applicator. The second method will be easier for you to do if you have these. These are non-serrated hemostats. It is very important that you get the ones that are not serrated or have no teeth on them. If you get a pair like this that does have the little teeth on it, those will leave marks in your gold. So it is very important that you avoid these and you only use this method with the ones that have no teeth or are non-serrated. If you have not used these before, what you're going to do is hold on to your gold piece with one end. I like to have 2 of these when doing this method, and then you can clip it shut and it will hold that position. Now, the 2 problems that I have with this method are, one, that you can scratch the gold using something metal. It doesn't have nylon jaws, and you're putting this on the face of the gold piece, so you can scratch your gold. The second is that you could bend it too far. You can bend it as far as you want using this method. So just be careful when you're bending them. So I'm going to grab it with the first pair and pinch it shut so it's holding onto it. And you can see I'm not even holding these shut, and it's holding on to my gold piece. So that's why this method is a little bit easier than using like a pointed tip applicator that you have to hold the gold still yourself. Now I'm going to pinch the other end with my second pair. And you can see I'm holding on to both of it. I can literally bend this gold piece as far as I want. This is why this method is a little bit dangerous. You can add as much of a bend as you want. So if I release these, you can see that that has a huge bend in it now. So this is our gold charm now from the front and from the top. You can see it has a huge bend in it. Generally, you would be a lot more careful than what I just showed you. I was just trying to give you an example of how far you're able to bend it with this method and why it's likely an easier method for bending. However, you do have to be careful with this method. Giving you a side-by-side again, on the left is one without a bend in it, and on the right is the ones that we bent using the hemostats. Now, our third method is using round nose pliers with nylon jaws. If you're using any form of pliers, it's best to have nylon jaws so you're not scratching your metal. This method is most similar to using our pointed tip applicator or micro brush because you're still going to have to manually form it around the shape. But this one is a little bit easier because it's pliers, so it's holding onto your piece for you rather than you having to hold it with one finger and pry it with the other finger. So you're able to place it on here and form it. This one might be my favorite method if you have limited tools because you have a range of depths. So if you were to form closer to the bottom here, you would get a more shallow bend. If you form more towards the tip here, you'll get a deeper bend. So I like that you have that range. I like that it's nylon jaw, so you're not scratching your metal. I like that it holds your piece for you. The only thing I really don't like about it is I just really genuinely do not enjoy having to manually push and pull my gold to form something when they're like 5 millimeters big, and it's extremely hard to do that. But I'll show you how to use this tool. So using your tweezers, go ahead and place your gold piece on the pliers and pinch down. This is what's going to hold the gold piece in place. And then just like with your pointed tip applicator, you now need to push and pull the edges of the gold that are sticking out onto the jaws of the pliers. While doing this, you're also clamping down on the pliers. It's not like the hemostat, it won't hold itself. You need to be holding this while simultaneously pushing your gold piece to form around the pliers. From the top, you can see this is the gold sticking out on both edges. We need to be pushing the face down to form around this bottom plier here. And this is why I'm not obsessed with this method. It's great if you have minimal tools, but I just hate manually bending gold. My camera died and I had to reset it. So sorry if the lighting's a little bit different now. You can see I pulled the edge of the gold piece around those pliers on that side. So now I would just need to do the same on this side. And here is the gold piece after the round nose pliers. I like the uniform curve. It doesn't look bent more on one side than the other like it did with the hemostat. I also like that the curve is quite round. It's not a sharp bend like you would get with the hemostat. Let's do a side-by-side comparison with this one and the original. Here you have a side-by-side. On the left, you have the original bend, and on the right, you have the round nose pliers with nylon jaws bend. You can bend it more using the round nose pliers if you want. I probably could have gotten a deeper bend, but this is just to show you an example, and that's probably my second favorite method. These are ring or metal forming pliers with nylon jaws. These are my favorite method of bending gold, but there are still pros and cons, so let me walk you through those. The pros are that you will get a very consistent bend in your gold pieces. I have a shallow pair and I have a deep pair, and your gold will bend as you see here. It's going to form to that shape. So you'll get a consistent bend each time you use it, which I really like. I also like that these are nylon jaws, so you're not going to scratch your gold piece like you would with metal jaws. And the third pro, in my opinion, is that they are just so easy to use. There's no manual adjustment needed. You simply put your gold piece in, close the pliers, squeeze, and your gold piece is bent. The only con that I have with these pliers is that there's not much variety. You either bend it like this or like this. Because our gold pieces are so small, they're only taking up from like here to here and here to here. And as you can see, you're getting most of your depth from the sides before you even reach it. So honestly, you are not getting that much of a difference between the shallow and deep ones, and you're not getting a huge bend. That's pretty much the extent of the bend you're going to get. So you likely will not be bending it enough to fit around a super curved canine, for example. But to be honest, if a tooth is curved to the point that these don't do the job, I likely would not be applying gold to that tooth. That's just my own personal opinion as a tooth gem tech that prioritizes the health, safety, and retention of my clients' tooth gems. But if you want something that's going to bend deeper than these, you can use one of the other methods I already showed you. With that said, let me go ahead and pop our gold piece in here and show you how to use them. When you're putting your gold piece in these pliers, you want the face of the gold on this concave side, which is the side pushing in. And you want the back of the gold on the convex side, which is the side that is pushing out. Because you can imagine this is the tooth that we're shaping to. You want to make sure that the back of it is against the tooth and the face of it is on the outside. The other thing to note is that it curves in this direction. So like we said earlier, make sure you're placing your gold piece with the curve going in this direction and you're not curving it the wrong way. So this is pretty simple. I'm just going to place my gold piece in. So I have the gold piece placed in there. We're going to squeeze it shut. You can see my gold piece is in there. And you are just going to squeeze it as hard as you can. Be careful when you open the pliers, your gold piece will probably be stuck to it, and you can simply pull it off. And there you can see it has slightly more bend to it than it did previously. To give you a little side-by-side again, the one on the left is the one that has not been bent any more than its original curve. And the one on the right is the one that we bent using the deeper set metal forming or ring forming pliers. So you can see we got a little bit more bend and it was the absolute easiest method of doing it. Now, one final comment I have is that I also like these pliers for undoing any mistakes that were made if using the previous methods. If you bend it too far using a pointed tip applicator or the round nose pliers or anything like that, this will really quickly revert it back to this shape and give it a nice even bend all the way across. I love having these in my toolkit no matter what. This is really the only thing I personally use to bend gold. But if you have the other tools on hand, then go ahead and give them all a try. You can always undo it with this. I hope that was helpful for you. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I want you to have all of the success in the world when applying our gold charms to your clients' smiles. So I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Thanks for watching.